Welcome to Crowdsource Coffee, where we explore topics that support the well-being and growth of education leaders. My name is Alexa Ashiel, and I'm here with some of my awesome colleagues to talk about how to live life in flow. But first, I have to ask, what's in everyone's cup?
I'm Shelly Part, and today I am drinking instant coffee because it is no by January, and that's what's in my freezer for me to finish up without buying something new.
I love that no by January. And instant coffee isn't too bad. I know it's not
Eh.
Yeah, Michelle and I are in the Northwest, so instant coffee not gonna fly. I got coffee here from Dapper and Wise with honey in it. My name is Kurt Sell. I'm a graphic designer at Inflection.
I'm Ling Dang. I am a Portico facilitator here. I have my favorite, an iced lavender latte. You will usually see me with that, whether out or at home. That's the flavor I always choose.
All right. And I guess I'm consistent with the last time because, like I said, I'm Alexa and I have water today. So everybody else is caffeinated. I'm taking a little break from the caffeine, but I think we're all ready to dive in. Let's get it. So, if you're a school leader, you know the feeling of a day that runs you instead of you running the day. And today we're talking about flow, that state of deep, effortless focus that can be the difference between burning out and and truly thriving in this profession. I like to call it like working in your zone of genius. And so we here at Inflection spend a lot of our days supporting school leaders. We see the challenges you face, and today we want to share some of our own experiences with how to remain in flow. We want to share some of experiences when we're out of flow and overall just give suggestions, advice, and maybe some fun anecdotes of what it's like to be in flow. And so today we're going to talk about why being in flow is not a luxury, but necessary for leadership, practical ways to protect your time and energy in this crazy educational environment that we work in, and how your personal flow state sets the tone for your entire school, organization, or community that you live within. So let's start out with a quick opener. In your work, when do you know that you've lost your flow? And what's the first step of getting it back?
I can say for me that I anxiety is something that I struggle with a lot. I feel frantic and disorganized when I am outside of my flow. I realize that I have missed things. Either it's something that I didn't think about or forgot that's a usual thing, or that it's overdue. And I'm like, oh no. So I start making to-do lists. We have a project management software called Asana that we use, which is really helpful to help me remember all the tasks that we have and tasks that are nestled within tasks. But I also have old school pen and paper next to me. I just something about writing it down and writing details about it and putting a date on there, or having some sort of like physical thing that I have to do helps me remember those things. And I think I find that more helpful in a lot of ways, because it just gets into my brain. And when those moments happen where it gives me a little bit like a sense of control, I guess, over all the tasks that need to get done.
I resonate with that. Not only do I resonate with that because I also feel like when I'm out of flow, I start to like lose my grip on things that are due or, stay on top of, the tasks that I have. I also feel resistance in myself when I start to get out of my flow or my zone of genius where it's like, I don't want to do that. Why are they asking me this? Or I don't want to have this conversation. And I start to feel that resistance within me. And I'm learning to check that. Instead of resisting and going silent, which is like my default mode when I know that I'm going out of my zone of genius, I'm learning to face it and communicate. maybe there's a pivot that has to happen, that I want to make and don't want to be stuck in the same pattern that somebody believes that I should be within. Or maybe I need to say like, hey, y'all, I'm very overwhelmed right now and I cannot take on the task, even though somebody may expect me to be able to, and just be able to express that. So I think that is what helps me get back into flow when I feel like, okay, I can handle all my tasks. I'm able to like tap in when I need to, and I can move
That
forward.
phrase, zone of genius, that's really lovely. And I think what you said is very similar to kind of how I feel like. I think my zone of genius is systems thinking and problem solving. And when I see a complex, just really messy problem with tons of interconnections, like usually I get excited and I have trouble not getting involved in, looking at solutions. And that's my sign when I'm out of flow is when I see a problem like that and I'm like, ooh, not today. Like that is an unnatural state for me to like see that and be like, I don't want to get into that. So for me, like when I see that joy in something just disappear, I know I need to do something to shift back because like that is where I have the most to offer. And it is also where I get the most like satisfaction. And if I am avoiding that, I am missing out on kind of that ability to really live in my zone of genius and
And
flow.
I love that you said that, looking for the joy, because that's what makes us want to do work. That's how we know that we're doing what we want to do. And I have to give credit to Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. She's the one who put me on to Zone of Genius. She's a seven-figure educator from principal turned, you know, consultant, all types of stuff. And she's the one who said, "What is your zone of genius?" and work
I
into it.
really like what you said, Michelle. I really resonate with that. I often feel like at doing graphic design, I really love what I do. I really love taking complex things and kind of making them visually pleasing and understandable. And I find myself when I'm overwhelmed or when I feel like I've just got too many things on my plate, that starts to leave. And it affects my creativity. It affects kind of everything. Um, and it affects my relationship with my wife who lives, I work from home. So I'm kind of like testy or short with her, and I'm usually never that way. So she's like, "Oh, you're in it, aren't you?" And we have kind of a thing like when I know I'm in that zone, I will often say, I'll yell out my door, "Okay, I'm going in," and it's kind of just the sign that's like I'm going in deep and I'm gonna be here for a bit, and you know, it's not like don't bother me, but just know that my response is going to be a little maybe shorter, maybe just not as warm as normally. So that's kind of the thing. And then kind of my first step for getting it back is I've started doing this thing where my alarm on my in fact it'll probably go off in a couple minutes here. I have this alarm that goes off every half hour for me to just get up, take a breath, walk around a little bit, move, and then come back. And a lot of times that reset kind of helps me just kind of settle myself a little more. So
So thank you all so much for responding to that question. And let's get into this first real question. That was our warm up. So as you all know, we support leaders from across different districts, different states, and a common thing that we see is that frenzy can become their default. But even in our own work here at Inflection, something that we often say in our check-ins is, "Oh, we're just keeping the plate spinning, we're keeping it going." And that can become the norm for like a few months. I can speak personally, becomes a norm for me. So, how can we identify the difference between just being busy and actually being in flow state?
Hey, Alexa, sometimes plate spinning feels like the flow state to me because I think that there is a lot of strategy and just being in that place where you're paying attention to all the plates and noticing, oop, there's a little wobble. Like plate spinning is actually a lovely analogy for the flow state for me because then if I'm not noticing plates, if plates are falling, that's when I'm out of alignment. But if I'm giving just enough energy to let physics do its thing, that's flow for me.
Okay, I love how you flipped that and reversed
Sorry.
it. And no, but I mean that's I. That's cool because I take it as like, oh, I got a lot going on. And, I don't know if that's necessarily flow state for me. And I feel like just being busy is doing like, for me, like the mundane tasks I know that need to be done. But for me, being in flow state is, if I'm really interested in the workshop that we're creating, that we have to create, and I'm just like sitting there, and then I look up and like 2 hours went by. Woo! But I feel so accomplished that that thing has been done. And I feel like for me, that is flow state. Or when I can piece out my schedule to make sure I have my personal ventures done, and then I can flow right on into work. And it's just like, okay, I'm doing what I know that I'm good at, instructional design. I'm creating something, and being busy is like, sometimes the busyness can be like the multiple meetings gets me out of flow state because I want to go work on the stuff that I want to work on, but I know that we have to meet in order to like, make the things happen. So, that to me is the difference is like, I'm doing what I want. I'm working in my zone. It's coming out how I like it. At the end of it, I'm like, yeah, like my brain feels exercise. Whew. And that's to me, that's flow state. Plate spinning is like, I got too much going on. If one of these things crash, it's gonna be a problem now.
I think mine is very similar to what you just said, Alexa. The beauty of working from home is that, I mean, I'm very lucky that I have my own space here, that when I leave this room, that I can put work out of my brain. Besides when, I'm cuddling with the dog or whatever, and on her big futon. But it's when I'm busy, I'm able to take brain breaks from work, since I can go downstairs, grab a coffee, or, run an errand real quick or something. And then I can come back. You might see me in the middle of the night here, like at 8 or 9, or sometimes later than that, working on something else, because my brain just needs a moment to like shut down for a little bit, and then come back a few hours later when everything's a little bit quieter, and I'm able to work on things. And then I look up and I'm like, oh my God, it's been 2, 3 hours that I've been sitting here and I've been doing something. But it's in that moment that my brain feels calm, that I can take on this task that is going to take a few hours, and not realize that time has passed until, my dog is like, I gotta go outside, or you gotta feed me, like it's time. And those are the things that I really appreciate from working from home, and also allows me to be in my flow state, because I can pick and choose the times that my brain is really ready to sit down and work on a writing task, which is not something I'm very good at. Or do those tedious things of like, double checking things, or checking all the things off the list that are just detailed but need to be done. And that's really what's helpful for me, to find those quiet moments, to be able to not allow my brain to be so distracted.
I wonder, like, for school leaders, how that's possible to like pick and choose when they are working on certain things. Because, from what we hear, once the school day starts, it's over for whatever it is that you want to get done. Like, it's 9 o'clock, then all of a sudden it's 4 p.m. And what you thought you had planned, you couldn't get planned. So I wonder if there is a way for school leaders to like find those areas in their schedule, or figure out when is the best time for them to like do that, be in their flow state to get done whatever it is they need to get done.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I've worked in schools a little bit, and have been around principals and been around that quite a bit as they're working, and you really see how school leaders' day, it just becomes urgent thing after urgent thing after urgent thing. Like they can't plan what's going to happen during the day. I mean, they can make plans, but there a fire alarm goes off. This happens. There's a fight in the hallway. Whatever it is, and those things can really, as you can imagine, those things can just really throw your day in a whole new direction and end up taking your whole day. So I was thinking about that as we were talking about this, because it's a very real issue. I think one thing I would say, the principals that I've seen do this really well are those who who look at each situation and go, is this a now thing? Is this a is this an urgent thing for me that I have to do right now? Or does it just feel urgent? Or is this something I can delegate to someone else to handle this part of it so that I can keep flowing or whatever? But I think it's really hard. School leadership isn't it's a job where it's just like it's one thing after another, and a lot of people are in that kind of situation, but I think school leaders really have it. They have it going. It's tough.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And honestly, our conversation in general is leading towards the next question, which is about protecting our schedule. We often talk about in our own work, and I'm sure with school leaders to an extent, you need to protect your schedule. You need to, you need to put in times where nothing can come in and interrupt this time that you set out to do whatever it is. So I would love to hear from you all. What are some of the most effective ways that we've seen this happen, whether in your personal work that you do or something that you've seen a school leader or another colleague do in order to protect their time?
One thing I've heard our coaches offer to school leaders over and over again is to spend some part of your day, your week, where you turn off the radio or you give it to another person and then just actually focus on the big picture, which I think for a lot of school leaders, that is the flow that is so hard to get into is big picture thinking with no distractions. And I know that advice is really hard for those leaders that have smaller school buildings. Maybe there's not as many people, but it's not just about the flow. I think that some of the things you said, Kurt, about delegating, it's also a way to build collaborative leadership. So we're taking those opportunities of not being the triage crisis response to let someone else practice that skill. It gives them time to build a leadership skill. And it's not like you're not there. You can be reached if you need to be, but you're not responding to that initial, notification, that initial thing. And I think that can lead to culture shifts that allow people to have that autonomy to solve problems, to engage in a really empowered way. So um, it takes a lot to trust that if you are not responding instantly, that people won't feel let down or that will be covered. But I really believe that our systems have the capacity for everyone to be responding and not just one person to hold every crisis so closely. So even just that little tiny practice, I think, is worth it for the culture shift that comes.
I think sometimes it can be an ego boost that people go, well, I'm the only one that can handle this, but it's like, if that's true, maybe you should be training other people to handle some of
Mhm.
those things. And so, what if you're sick? What's going to happen? And so you kind of look at those things and go, okay, is this just making me feel good because I feel like I'm the one that's handling everything? Or is a systemic problem that I need to kind of work on?
Yeah, I love that framing. Like, if I handle every problem, I am not actually doing my job well.
Yeah.
My 100% success rate is a bad thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you mentioned about a systemic issue because even within our own small team here, or if you're in a larger school team or running a school building, I think like the small things of saying, hey, we're not going to stack our meetings one after the other. We're going to have a little break.
Mhm.
We're going to have a little break, and that's just the culture of it. And that might be the leader doing that for themselves, but that gives permission for others to implement that system in other ways as well. Or only limiting things to like, hey, if you want to come talk to me about XYZ, I'm available in the morning time, or I'm available in the morning and after school. Or you can find a time on my calendar, it's 20 minutes. Here's my calendar link, put that in, and that's how you can talk to me because that will help me show up for you better and be able to be more clear-headed as opposed to like random pop-ins or random questions that I don't have the capacity to answer. And I know working virtually, like lack of communication is very hard when somebody may send you a message and it's like, oh, I want to respond, like I want to get it to them right now, but like what if I don't have the answer right now? And I can't just be like, oh, I guess you can reach out and say, I don't have the answer right now. I need about 5 or 10 minutes to think about that. But what happens if maybe we put in a structure of like, I like our 3-2 cues in our practica meeting because then we can let out a question that maybe we've been holding that hasn't had the chance to be answered. And this is the space where we can do that and try to get our answer, as opposed to chasing the answer and feeling like, well, nobody wants to answer me now. I can't get my job done. So I do really like this idea of implementing these flow state structures for not only the leader to follow, but it for everybody else as well.
Actually, I have a strategy that I use, and you probably see it on my calendar, but I have a power hour once a week.
Mhm.
And I'll have to remember, I'll share the resource. I got it from someone else. I didn't make it up, but it's a tool where you spend an hour focusing on little things that get deprioritized. They're usually administrative, they're annoying, they don't serve a super valuable purpose, but they're necessary and they stack. And the more of those little things you have on my paper to-do list over here, the fuller that is. It is mental clutter, it is stress inducing. It just adds to the barrier to getting into flow state. And so power hour is a time just like I only do things off that list. It is nothing that is urgent. It is only things from that list. And I get like a physical feeling of calm when that list gets depleted. I just get that like dopamine hit of checking things off. They go in the garbage. And then I have a vacant list that just allows me to really focus in on something that is urgent and is important without those other things taken away.
I see your power hours on your calendar, Michelle. I don't do exactly that, but I've learned to like block out times that I'm going to spend working on specific projects. Like I'm gonna take an hour and a half. I'm working crowdsource. Next day, I'm taking an hour and a half. I'm working on a workshop, and that helps me like calm throughout the whole week, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, and then it's Friday, and I didn't complete the task for those projects that I'm working on. So very similar. I think I just block mine out by project, and so that has been like really helpful with keeping me calm, cool, and collected.
I'm going to start blocking out things like that because I tend to just work based on whoever asked for something right now and kind of and I need to be better about that because most of the things that I do aren't that urgent. Some of them are kind of urgent, but not that urgent. So I can block groups of time out and say I'm going to do that. That's good help. I'm putting that on my list.
So again, this conversation definitely is leading into this next question. And it's about flow as culture, right? It's not just something that we do for ourselves. And we talked about it a little bit when we said if we integrate these systems, then it changes the work environments in which we dwell in. So we know that a leader's internal state is contagious. If you have a chaotic leader, then the organization is going to be chaotic. If you have a stern leader, then the organization is going to be stern because they are the drivers of the culture. So, how do you all prioritize your own flow and well-being? And how have you seen it change your personal work environment? We touched on it a little bit here and there, but I would love to hear more.
Um, I am a very reactive person. I see an email pop in or I see a chat come through and I feel the need to respond immediately. I think it's just the way that I was raised. And so when I'm in like right now, this meeting, my phone is on do not disturb. Because my work stuff is on my phone, my personal stuff obviously is on my phone, and I have an Apple Watch. So it gets buzzed through on my watch too if it's not on do not disturb. Usually I will keep my phone facing up. So if I see like a Slack notification off like out of the corner of my eye, if I see if it's important, then I can respond to it. But I don't feel the need as much when it's not because I have three screens. I don't feel if I have it right in front of me and it's like I see the name, I see what it is that they're asking, I feel the need to respond. So I try to protect my own like anxiety and need to respond by just shutting things off completely that I need to be focusing on this task right now or getting these things through or sending these emails and doing a batch of whatever and just quieting everything else. Like everything else can wait. If people know how to reach me, they have my cell phone number, whatever it is. and I'll get back to them, eventually. But I try my best to not be reactive, and I try to find tricks to prevent myself from being reactive. I think if I didn't do that, I would be in a state of chaos constantly, and I'd be bouncing around, which isn't helpful to myself or my teammates when I cannot get a single task done. I only have halfway done things everywhere.
I relate to that. Um, I'm very reactive. Um, and it's kind of the thing where it's I don't know if it's like ADD, ADHD or something, but it's like, oh, ding, I need to do this. And then pretty soon an hour's gone by and I'm away from my task that I was working on. So I don't know if I mean, I'm definitely the oldest guy here and I haven't really figured it out. So I'm still working on, trying to figure out good. I do have systems for myself to trick myself into not doing that. Um, but it's a constant struggle for me because I am kind of a squirrel, guy. So it's rough for me sometimes.
Yeah, I feel that. One thing that me and my other colleague have started in the new year is like I believe it's called body doubling. Where like especially in a remote environment where we're both on the line and we're both working towards a task and we may not be talking, but we're working towards a task and by the end of the hour that task is going to be done. And we did it one time and I was like, wow, I think I really like this because it allows us to be in flow and get in our creative bag, but it's not like we have to do it alone. And I think like working in a silo, because working remote, we pretty much alone, can make it very easy for like, oh, I'm gonna go on my Instagram. Oh, I'm gonna go look at this. Oh, this email is going over here. Oh, this, and then it's like, dang, I didn't finish this one task that might have really took me 5 minutes to complete had I just sat down and concentrated. So doing that is something that has been helpful. And I've seen it change the work environment because now it feels like we had a task, we got it done, we can move on, as opposed to we had a task and now we're circling back next week and we still have that same task.
Alexa, my best friend and I do that, and we call it accountability buddy. And we do it during tax season because we both hate doing our taxes. It doesn't take that long, but we get each other on the phone and we just sit there in silence doing our taxes essentially. And for the 30 minutes, hour and a half, whatever amount of time it is, we are holding each other accountable to do that task. And there's quite a bit of venting afterwards, but it's nice to have a person with you, whether it's virtually, in person, on the phone, whatever, that you have to focus on that task on hand.
I think that brings up kind of an important thing, like uh, just being willing to share these challenges that we have with the people that we work around. Like just communicating that to, I was thinking in a school leadership situation where you're a school leader and you say to your fellow leader or the people that are in your office, hey, this is something I kind of struggle with. And so when I set this time aside, that's the reason for it. It's not because I don't want anybody to bother me. It's just because I struggle with this. And I think being honest and letting people know kind of the challenges that we have can really help. Um, just it gets people on our side, and we become a team working on this challenge together, rather than it just being like, oh, why is Kurt locked the door and not talking to anybody or whatever. And it's like, I think just letting people know what's going on and the challenges that we have.
I think a little different flavor of reactive that this made me think of. I have a reactive dog, and she's very challenging. And I have learned a lot about how to maintain my flow state from dog training. Um, it's really hard to hold your inner calm when you are working with someone whose behavior is a little bit out of control and very loud and very conspicuous. And, when you're out on a walk with a reactive dog, other people walking will stare, they will judge, they will make comments. And it feels really challenging to stay calm when she's not calm, because when I am calm with chaos, it looks like I'm not taking it seriously. And there's certainly a part of, I think, being in panic mode that is how we show other people in the environment that we care. You know, we don't want our calm to look like apathy. And but it's not, because if I react when she reacts, my training suffers. That does not help her change her behavior. It doesn't help us have a different experience. All it does is it lets Looky Loo see that I know that she shouldn't be barking that way. But it doesn't help. It's really hard. It feels like in order to like hold my space so that her nervous system can relax, I have to kind of feel a little bit of shame or judgment or accept that judgment and not solve that and really focus on the thing that is important to me, which is this experience for her and her ability to change so that maybe the next experience isn't as difficult.
Show. Yeah, I don't mic drop.
But it goes back to what Kurt was saying, the ego part. Sometimes for flow, we have to let go of ego.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like living in that like upper emotional intelligence sector where it's like, I know my lower self probably wants to react in this way, but in order, like you said, to maintain calm and to let that calm reverberate, I have to be calm in the chaos. And that can be so hard to do, but it really is the thing, especially in a leadership position. Because if you become chaotic, when
Mhm.
everything else is chaotic, nothing is going to be solved. So you really have to learn how to like be peace in a firestorm. Um, and that does take a lot of practice. Maybe meditation should be like part of this. Well, thank you so much for engaging in this conversation. I think focusing on flow, especially at the start of the new year, is a smart move towards sustainability. Cheers.